It was past 10 o'clock, and once again, Daniel hadn't come home. The ticking clock in our Portland kitchen sounded louder than it should every second, adding to the silence pressing against my chest. I wasn't alone. My best friend Claire Matthews sat at the table with her mug of tea, her eyes never leaving mine as I tried to make sense of my husband's constant late nights. "Is he always this late now?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I sighed. "Lately, yes. He says the garage is busier than ever, too much work, not enough hands. But it never used to be like this. He used to take Sundays off. Sometimes we went out, but now it's nothing. No weekends, no holidays, just excuses." Claire tilted her head. "And you believe that it's all just work?" My stomach tightened. I want to. His clothes smell of oil. His hands look like they've been fixing cars, but sometimes I wonder if it's something else. Someone else. I hated admitting it, but Claire's words mirrored the doubts I had been trying to silence for weeks. What made everything worse was the distance that had grown between us. Daniel and I hadn't been intimate in over a month, every night ending with him collapsing into bed, muttering he was too tired. I had told him I wanted us to start a family. We'd been married 5 years, but how could I have a child with a man I barely saw? Claire frowned. "And he still hasn't introduced you to his family, right?" I shook my head. Daniel once told me he had a mother and a brother in another city, but claimed they'd cut ties after he used his lottery winnings to open the garage instead of handing the money to his mother. They hadn't spoken since not even at our wedding. Only 2 of his co-workers attended. His own brother never came. Claire whistled softly. "That's not just complicated, Emma. That's strange." Before I could answer, the front door creaked open, and the heavy scent of alcohol filled the hallway. Daniel stumbled inside his shoulders, slouched eyes glassy. My stomach sank. "Why so late?" I asked cautiously. He waved a hand. "A friend from work went missing. I was worried, so I had a few drinks." "Missing," I whispered. "Did you call the police?" He muttered that they wouldn't do anything. His friend was an adult, probably just off somewhere. Claire's posture stiffened, her eyes narrowing. I pressed on, unable to hide my frustration. "Daniel, you can't just come home like this every night." His face darkened. "Can you stop? You nag every time I walk through the door. Try acting like a wife instead of tearing me down." He stepped closer, and for the first time, I felt the sharp fear that he might raise his hand against me. My throat tightened, but before I could react, Claire spoke, her voice cutting like steel. "If you even think about touching her, you'll regret it. Don't forget I have a black belt." Daniel glared at her, his jaw rigid, but after a tense moment, he stomped away toward the shower. I sat frozen, my heart racing. Claire reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That night, long after she left, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Daniel slept silently beside me, his back turned. For the first time in our marriage, I realized I was afraid of him. When I finally drifted into a shallow sleep, I dreamed of my father gone for years, standing on the porch of my childhood home. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear the words. I woke with my heart pounding, convinced it was a warning. My father had never once appeared in my dreams without a reason. By mid-morning, I couldn't take the gnawing unease any longer. On impulse, I drove to the garage. Winter air bit at my cheeks as I pulled into the nearly empty lot. For a place Daniel claimed was swamped with work, only 2 cars sat outside. My pulse quickened as I stepped inside. Igor, one of the mechanics, looked startled when he saw me. "Is Daniel around?" I asked casually. "He was here earlier," he said with hesitation. "Haven't seen him in a while." I forced a smile and walked toward Daniel's office. His door was closed, but his voice filtered through the thin walls. "I told you not today," he said, his tone urgent. "My wife's starting to get suspicious. If she pushes, she might try to find out more." "We'll move it to Monday. That's final." Silence. Then his voice again firm. No, it won't work now. Monday. I'll call you then. My stomach dropped. I froze outside the door, my palm pressed against the wall as my mind raced. Who was he talking to? What couldn't wait? And why was he so desperate to keep me from finding out? I smoothed down my hair, knocked softly, then pushed the door open. Daniel startled, nearly dropping the folder in his hands. His eyes widened. Emma, what are you doing here? I was nearby, I said with a forced smile. Thought I'd stop in. I wanted to apologize for last night. I don't mean to nag. You work hard. He studied me, suspicion in his gaze, then unexpectedly softened. Maybe tonight I'll come home early. Dinner, just us. I nodded, though dread churned inside me. His sudden tenderness only made the secret I'd overheard more terrifying. That weekend, Daniel stayed home helping with chores, watching TV shoveling snow. To anyone else, he looked like an ordinary husband. But I saw through the silence the way he avoided deep conversations. On Saturday night, I asked about his family again, hoping he'd finally open up. Instead, his jaw clenched, his voice sharp. We've talked about this. My family is my problem. Don't get involved. His tone was harsher than ever, and the anger in his eyes made me shrink back. The next morning, I told Claire everything. She was quiet for a long moment before saying firmly, He's hiding something big. If you want answers, you need to follow him. I hesitated, ashamed at the thought, but she pressed. What's worse, following him or realizing years from now he's been lying to you all along? You said you're afraid of him. That's not normal, Emma. You need the truth. I stared out at the falling snow, my reflection pale and tense in the glass. Claire was right. I couldn't avoid it anymore. Monday, I whispered. I'll follow him. Monday came faster than I wanted. From the moment I woke up, nerves consumed me. My stomach was twisted so tightly I couldn't eat, and every tick of the clock seemed to push me closer to a moment I wasn't ready for. By late afternoon, I dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie, pulling a baseball cap low over my face. When Claire pulled up outside my house, she laughed softly. You look like you're about to rob a bank, she teased. I forced a smile. I feel like it. We parked a block from the garage, hiding her car behind bare trees on a side street. The cold wind cut through my jacket, but I barely noticed my pulse hammering in my ears. For the first half hour, nothing happened, just mechanics moving between cars, customers coming and going. Then, just as my doubts began to creep in, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Sleek, expensive, entirely out of place in this neighborhood. Claire nudged me sharply. That's it. That's who he's waiting for. Two people stepped out. A woman, elegant and mid-40s, her hair twisted into a sleek bun, exuding authority with every movement. Beside her, a younger man in his 30s, tall, scanning the lot with sharp eyes, like he was security. Neither of them looked like customers. They walked straight past the service area and disappeared into Daniel's office without a word. My chest tightened. Who are they? I whispered. Claire shook her head. Not random customers, that's for sure. Without warning, Claire slipped her sunglasses on and pulled her hood up. I'm going in. What? No, Claire, wait. But before I could stop her, she started. Her car drove into the lot and parked near the entrance. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I crouched behind the bushes, watching as she walked confidently inside. Minutes dragged on like hours. My imagination spun wild. What if they recognized her? What if Daniel caught her, just as panic threatened to overwhelm me? Claire reappeared, walking quickly back to her car. Her face was pale, but her eyes blazed with urgency. The moment she shut the door, I blurted, "What happened?" She gripped the steering wheel, steadying her breath. "Emma, it's not another woman. It's worse." My throat went dry. "Tell me." Her voice was low. They were talking about cars. Stolen cars. Daniel told that woman he managed to change the VIN numbers on 2 of them, but she was furious because she wanted 5 by yesterday. She threatened him. He was scared, Emma. He's not in control. She is. My head spun. An affair I could have processed, no matter how painful. But this crime theft threats, it was darker than anything I'd imagined. I pressed my hands to my face, shaking. "This can't be real." Claire touched my arm. "It is. He's hiding more than lies. He's hiding a criminal life." I couldn't bear to go home. Instead, I drove to the waterfront park, pacing the icy path around the pond. Bare trees reached toward a gray sky, ducks huddled at the frozen edges of water. Everything looked lifeless, yet the chill air cleared my spinning head. I sat on a bench, clutching my gloves, when a voice behind me said softly, "Emma? Emma Carter. Is that really you?" I turned and froze. Standing there was Lucas Hayes, my high school sweetheart. His smile was warm, his eyes as kind as I remembered. My heart skipped. "Lucas?" I whispered. It had been nearly 16 years since we last saw each other when his family moved away just before graduation. He slipped off his sunglasses, laughing softly. "I knew it was you. You look different, but still the same." Memories rushed back late-night study sessions, stolen kisses before football games, the way he used to hold my hand, like it was the safest place in the world. We walked along the path, catching up. He told me he'd never married, throwing himself into work instead, and now ran a chain of boutique hotels. He was confident, successful, grounded, the same boy I once loved, only sharper around the edges. When he asked about my life, my voice faltered as I admitted I was married. He glanced at my ring, but didn't comment. There was something in his eyes, though a softness that made my chest ache. We ended up at a small cafe near the park. Over coffee conversation flowed effortlessly, laughter slipping in, as though no years had passed. With Daniel, silence had become the language of our marriage. With Lucas, words came like breathing. I felt seen, understood, cherished, and yet guilt stabbed at me. I was still Daniel's wife, even if his world was built on secrets. When it was time to leave, Lucas touched my arm gently, his fingers warm through my coat. "Let's not wait another 16 years before we talk again," he said softly. My heart trembled with longing and confusion as I nodded. 2 days later, Claire called, her voice sharp with urgency. "Emma, sit down. I found something." My stomach tightened as she continued. "I had a friend in the Portland police run a check. Daniel was married before. He has a daughter. 9 years old." Her words hit me like a blow. "No, that's impossible. He told me he'd never been married." Claire didn't waver. "It's true. His ex-wife remarried and moved away, but the girl is his, and that's not all. His name shows up in multiple investigations tied to stolen cars. He's never been charged, but he's always there. Too many times for coincidence." I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. For 5 years, I had shared a life, a home, a bed with a man who had hidden an entire family and a criminal past. My world tilted. The man I married wasn't who I thought he was. Claire's voice softened. "Emma, this isn't just lies. It's danger. You need to think about your safety." That evening, I met Lucas again at the cafe. His concern was immediate when he saw my pale face. I told him everything, Daniel's hidden daughter, his name in police files. Lucas's expression hardened, but his voice was gentle. Emma, you can't live like this. If he's lying about family and crime, what else could he do? You need to step away before it destroys you. His words settled deep inside me like the only truth I could hold on to. It was a Thursday night when Daniel called. His voice was clipped, rushed, like speaking to me was a burden. Got too much work at the shop. Don't wait up. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood in the kitchen, the phone cold in my hand, and felt something in me harden. It wasn't sadness this time. It was anger. Anger at the lies, at the emptiness, at the years wasted believing in a man who had never been honest with me. Almost without thinking, I scrolled to Lucas's number and hit call. He answered on the first ring as if he had been waiting. Emma. His voice was warm, steady. Are you free tonight? My voice trembled, but not from fear, from a longing I hadn't felt in years. Yes, I whispered. I need to see you. An hour later, I stepped out of a cab in front of one of his boutique hotels. Lucas was already outside, holding a small bouquet of lilies, my favorite. The simple thoughtfulness made my throat tighten. Daniel had never once brought me flowers, unless it was a holiday. Lucas handed me the bouquet with a soft smile. You look beautiful, he said, paying the driver before offering me his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Inside his suite, a bottle of champagne sat chilling in a silver bucket glasses, waiting on the table. The lights were dim, soft music humming in the background. Every detail carried a quiet intimacy I hadn't known in years. Lucas poured 2 glasses, raised his toward me. To new beginnings. My hand shook slightly as I clinked mine against his. The first sip burned sweetly down my throat, loosening the knot that had lived in my chest for months. That night in his arms, I remembered what it felt like to be wanted, not as an obligation, not as a shadow in someone else's life, but as a woman cherished. Lucas kissed me slowly, reverently, as though I were something precious. There was no rush, no bitterness, no emptiness, just tenderness and passion that had long been absent from my marriage. For hours, the years of doubt and loneliness fell away, replaced by warmth I thought I had lost forever. Later, lying against him, the city lights flickering beyond the curtains, he stroked my hair and whispered, You can't keep living like this. Tell him you need to leave, even if it's just for a while. Invent a reason, a sick relative, a trip, anything. If he lets you go without a fight, you'll have your answer. And if he doesn't, his eyes held mine, then we'll know how dangerous this really is. His words echoed inside me long after dawn. When I returned home, exhaustion clung to me, but for the first time, I felt clarity. That evening, when Daniel walked in, I told him my cousin had fallen ill and needed care. I said I'd have to leave town for a while. My voice shook deliberately, as if it were hard to admit. For a moment, I thought he'd protest. Instead, he exhaled almost in relief. If you need to go, then go, he said, avoiding my eyes. The ease with which he accepted my absence cut deeper than any insult. He wasn't worried about me leaving, he was glad. Whatever he was hiding, he wanted me out of the way. That weekend, Claire drove back from Daniel's hometown with a grim expression. She came straight to Lucas's suite, her face pale. I knew before she spoke that what she'd uncovered was worse than I imagined. Emma, she said, shutting the door behind her. Your husband wasn't lying about cutting ties with his family, but it's not just bad blood. His mother and brother are fugitives. They've been wanted for years for auto theft and organized crime. The whole family is tangled in it, and Daniel, he never really walked away. My knees weakened, and Lucas pulled out a chair for me. Claire's voice softened. He didn't want you to know because once you did, you'd see him for what he is. Lucas leaned forward steady and calm. Emma, you can't wait any longer. If you keep living like this, he'll drag you down with him. You need to confront him, but not alone. The three of us stayed up late piecing together a plan. Claire had managed to record conversations in Daniel's hometown. Lucas had contacts who could discreetly pass information to the police if needed. It was risky, but necessary. I knew now that I wasn't just dealing with lies, I was standing in the shadow of organized crime. On Sunday night, with my hands shaking, I called Daniel. We need to talk, I said. My voice was flat steady. Meet me at the Northern Hotel. Suite 312. He hesitated. Why there? Because it's private, I answered. And because it matters. After a long pause, he agreed. Half an hour. Lucas had arranged everything. Suite 312 was near an emergency stairwell with a connecting door to another room where he and Claire would wait, hidden but close. My heart hammered as I sat on the couch, palms damp, when Daniel walked in. He closed the door behind him, his eyes narrowing. All right, what's this about? I stood, every nerve in me trembling, but my voice came out steady. It's about the lies. Your family, the stolen cars, the daughter you never told me about. His face froze. For a split second, he looked stunned. Then the mask slipped, replaced by fury. Who told you that? His voice was sharp, dangerous. It doesn't matter, I said firmly. What matters is I know, and I can't live like this anymore. His jaw tightened. He took a step closer, his eyes like steel. You think you can just walk away? You think you can expose me and survive it? One push out that window and no one would ever question it. Fear surged, but I forced myself not to move. My voice shook but held. If you touch me, you'll regret it. People already know. Claire knows. Lucas knows. And the police are only one call away. At that moment, Lucas stepped out from the adjoining room, calm but commanding. Claire followed, phone in hand. We've got everything recorded, Daniel, she said coldly. Your threats, your lies. It's over. Daniel's face drained of color. He looked at each of us, chest heaving, the weight of reality crashing in. The rage faded from his eyes, replaced by something like defeat. Slowly, he sank onto the couch, muttering curses under his breath. Lucas called the police, and within 20 minutes, officers arrived to take him into custody. Claire handed over her recordings, the missing pieces the detectives needed. I stood by the window, trembling as the red and blue lights flashed across the snow outside. 5 years of marriage ended in handcuffs and betrayal. My heart ached, but beneath the pain, a wave of relief began to rise. For the first time in years, I felt I could breathe again. When the police car pulled away, I remained at the window, frozen, staring into the night as the flashing lights disappeared down the Portland street. My hands trembled, and I couldn't tell if it was from fear, grief, or simply the weight of release after carrying so much for 5 long years. The man I had married was gone, not because he left, but because the mask had finally shattered. What remained wasn't love, only betrayal. Lucas stepped quietly beside me, resting a hand on my shoulder. It's over, Emma, he said gently. You don't have to carry him anymore. His words pierced through me, breaking open the dam I had been holding back. I turned to him, tears stinging my eyes. 5 years, Lucas. 5 years of my life built on lies. I don't even know who I was married to anymore. From the couch, Claire spoke with firm, steady compassion. Don't blame yourself. He fooled you, Emma. He fooled everyone. You trusted him because you believe in people. That's not weakness, it's strength. But now you know, and now you're free. I let out a bitter laugh, wiping my cheeks. Free? It doesn't feel like freedom yet. More like standing on the edge of a cliff, not knowing if I should jump. Claire shook her head softly. Then don't look down. Look ahead. Lucas guided me out onto the balcony. The city stretched below us, lights glowing against the winter sky. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering until he draped his coat over my shoulders. For a long time, we stood in silence, the night air sharp but cleansing. The chaos of the evening, the years of doubt, seemed to drift away into the darkness. Finally, I whispered, I don't know what comes next. I don't even know who I am without him. You're Emma Whitmore, Lucas said firmly, turning toward me. You're stronger than you think, and you don't have to figure everything out tonight. You've got time, and you've got people who care about you. You've got me. His tenderness cracked something inside me that had been hardened by years of fear. For the first time in so long, I felt hope, not built on lies, but on something real. Behind us, Claire leaned against the doorway, her tone dry but warm. I'd say you've had enough drama for one lifetime. Maybe try a little peace and honesty. It looks good on you. I smiled faintly through my tears. Leave it to her to cut through the heaviness with blunt truth. In that moment, I realized something. My marriage hadn't ended that night. It had ended years ago when Daniel chose secrecy over love, lies over trust. What ended tonight wasn't a life together, but the illusion of one. The choice before me now was simple: cling to the wreckage, or step into a future no longer shackled by fear. I reached for Lucas's hand, intertwining my fingers with his. The night was cold, but in that moment, warmth spread through me. For the first time in years, I felt safe, seen, and ready to begin again. The days that followed were strange. The house felt both empty and lighter without Daniel's presence. I walked through rooms once filled with suspicion and silence and realized how much of myself I had lost within those walls. I packed boxes, slowly leaving behind the things that tied me to him, keeping only what belonged to me. Each box sealed was like reclaiming a piece of myself. Lucas and Claire never left me to face it alone. Claire brought over coffee, sat with me while I sorted through paperwork, and reminded me with her dry humor that life wasn't ending. It was beginning. Lucas gave me space when I needed it, but when he stayed, his presence filled the silence with something steady, something real. One evening, weeks later, we stood again on the balcony of his hotel. The city stretched below the winter snow, replaced with the first hints of spring. Lucas slipped his hand into mine, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt alive. I had spent years drowning in shadows, and now at last, I was stepping into the light. I thought of Daniel's threats, his rage, the way he had tried to control me through fear. And I thought of the woman I used to be afraid to ask questions, afraid to face the truth. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had walked through betrayal and come out standing. The greatest lesson I carried wasn't about Daniel, it was about myself. Love twisted into secrecy and control isn't love at all. Trust broken beyond repair cannot be rebuilt by silence. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is step away from what destroys us, even if it means stepping into the unknown. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with gold, I realized the truth I had been avoiding. Freedom isn't loud. It isn't triumphant. It's quiet. It's choosing peace over chaos, honesty over lies, dignity over fear. It's remembering that your worth is not up for negotiation no matter who tries to tell you otherwise. I turned to Lucas, meeting his steady gaze, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to smile. Not for anyone else, not to pretend, but because I finally felt it deep inside. I had survived the lies. I had reclaimed myself. And from here, the future was mine to choose. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. If it touched you, please like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear it. And tell me in the comments, what's the hardest truth you've ever had to face about someone you loved?